This meeting is being recorded. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this new episode of Embodied Memories, Oral Histories of African Diasporic Religious Communities. We are so delighted to be meeting up again with our dear Manbo, Katherine Jenkins-Jum, who's going to share her artistic expression with us in the form of poetry. So you're really in for a treat. We're going to read at least 2 poems. If spirit moves us, we may unpack a third one, she said. But for right now, you're in for at least 2 poetry readings and some and also some explanations of them. So welcome, Manbo Katherine.
Thank you. Thank you. It's an honor to be here with you.
Oh, I'm so delighted. I'm so delighted and excited. I've had the pleasure of previewing the poems, and I can't wait for you to share them with us and for us to get to chatting about them.
Nice. Me too. Me too. So you want me to jump in with the first one?
Sure, let's go for it.
Okay. So I do this symbol. It's like the / symbol. So the title of this is In the Dreams of Our Ancestors. And I was looking back at my notes. I think my memory of this is that it came in 2017, but my notes say I typed it in 2018. So here goes. In my dreams, I greet our oldest ancestors in their custom, and it pleases them. And though their dark brown skin and hardened hands do not resemble my wintertime pallor or skin kept smooth by lotions, I see myself within their facial expressions and body language, just as they see themselves in mine. I am so happy to be home because we are. In my dreams, though our words loom indecipherable by language, our songs and dances tell our stories, the joy of our reunion, the despair of our severance, the unthinkable pain and horror caused by our alien nation. Love radiates between us outside of rational comprehension from deep within our spirits. My ancient grandfather smiles mischievously, shakes his head wistfully, sighs a knowing sigh, holds me to him, tight, tight, as if to say, my dear little child, you are not crazy or foolish for loving my dark-skinned sons. You are rather most human. My ancient grandmother presses her forehead to mine, holds my face between her ancient hands, as if to say, we are not sending you away, little one. We are just sending you ahead, for invoking our memory even before you knew us or how to do so, to keep remembering us as you always have. My eyes squeeze shut tight to hold back disobedient tears, to fight the ending of a dream. We return to the present, looking back to the past, belly full of ancestral fire. My stranger's face belies my kinswoman's spirit, full of remembering, full of love. In the dawn, the call of birds will greet the ancient's phoenix, will greet me. The ancient's phoenix will rise from the ashes, called forth by the Sankofa, who will fly forward looking back, hearkening with her songs, our forgotten stories and dreams of our ancestors, full circle.
Awesome. Awesome. I love this piece. I love this piece.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes, it transported me. The first time that I heard you share it, you shared it, of course, during your life history interview. And then now hearing it again as well. It's it's very kind of, futuristic, Afrofuturistic. But like the opposite of it, right? Like we're going back to the memory, right? So it's like, maybe imagining ourselves, being able to have these conversations that people have been having. So, but before I get ahead of myself, because it's so broad, it's so beautiful, you tell me, what does it say about who you are? What does this poem say about who you are? What are some of the things it says? It says a lot.
Yeah. I mean, well, I have another poem that I wrote that's called In the Season of Gede, which, is like that late October, early November time of year.
Mm-hmm.
And I wrote that poem around that time, but I think it was also around the time that I was realizing like, oh, this is when I was conceived, because I'm a Leo. I'm
Mm.
a I'm a like early Leo, late July. Um the day after his Emperor Haile Selassie's birthday. And I think that, like if you're born around that time, you have a, that's what they say, that, when the veil is thinnest and such, you do have a connection, a deep connection with the ancestors.
Mm.
And I think I've always felt that, you know what I mean? I I love my elders, my blood elders, my spirit elders.
Mm-hmm.
And I've always been like curious about what came before as well.
Mm-hmm.
Um, um, all of my grandparents are on the other side now, but I was very, um, especially in my younger years when I was living in Japan, and my paternal grandparents were all also there. I was very close to them. And I just remember the feeling of like being small, being with them, and like in the bed with them, like cuddling and snuggling and just like feeling so safe. And I
Mm-hmm.
like in this poem, there's that feeling, right? These our oldest ancestors, like our original, the OGs,
Yeah.
that are why we're all here and that link us all together. And it's like a feeling of like, oh, I feel so close to them and I just want to stay with them. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And they're like showing me that love too, but they're also like, you got things to do out there, over there in the future. Um, so I think, and I think also like, interesting fact about me, I was, I was in induced labor, which means that like my mother took medicine to make me come at a certain time.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this is also like, I've analyzed this maybe too much, but it's sort of like this reticence to like cross over, you know what I mean? I think that's also in this dream of like, I really want to stay there with them, right? Um, and that's why like, there's the holding back the tears. Is like, you gonna make me go? Like, but I'm good here with y'all, you know what I mean? Um, so yeah, I think those are some of the things that it says about me. Um, and I think it the part about my my stranger's face belies my kinswoman spirit, full of remembering, full of love. Like I get it. Like I get that people aren't always going to see it. A lot of people, I'm so blessed. A lot of people feel me before they see me, or they
Mm-hmm.
they see me in spite of like the external covering, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I know that that's not always the case, you know what I mean? And so I think it's all also some reckoning with that. Um in that piece about, the ancient grandfather telling me, "You're not crazy to love my dark skinned sons."
Mm-hmm.
That's about my experience, being partnered with Black men in my life. And like society sends white women a lot of wild messages. In some cases, they're probably not wrong. Like I've seen some couples that I'm like, oh, I don't know if there's healthy things going on there in terms of intentions. But there's also a lot projected onto you,
Mm-hmm.
projected onto me. So there's a piece of that as well. Um,
Yeah. And you say in the piece, well, you're not crazy. It makes it makes you human.
Yeah, exactly.
It makes you
Exactly.
human.
Because I know that the what has attracted me to the people whom I've been attracted to is not like, it is spiritual. It is spiritual. Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And of course the spirit is, we're spirits moving in the flesh, but that's the most important part of it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Thank you. Thank you so much, Mambo Catherine. This has really been, yes, really extraordinary. And, there's so much that we can kind of, unpack further, but thank you for
Mhm.
that, giving us that context and helping us to better understand your perspective.
Yeah.
And of course, you kind of touched on it, some
Mm.
things, but like you mentioned, get a season and because my next question is, in what ways does this piece reflect your
Mm-hmm.
faith tradition and personal relationship with God and your spirits? And
Yeah.
and to start your answer to that question, if I may, I'm going to ask you to please explain the significance of Gede. For those who are not a part of the voodoo tradition, like what does
Mm-hmm.
that mean? You mentioned that the significance of Gede season. So can you just explain that a little bit more for us?
Yeah, sure. So Gede, because of the Catholic overlay on voodoo in the Haitian context, is typically celebrated November 1st or in that time of year. Um, and the Escort Gede, all the Gedes, Bawon Samdi, Papa Gede, Gede Zarinier, Gede Nibo, they're all associated in general with sort of death, cemeteries, the ancestors. But then Gede is also known for being, like a very sexual, fun guy,
Mm-hmm.
a fun spirit. You go to Fed Gede, there's whining happening. There's it's lit. It's
Right.
lit. Gede is
Joie
lit.
de vivre.
Joie de vivre. That's it. That's it.
Enjoying life.
Exactly. And it's the connection of how do we get here, right? How do the babies get here? Well, get is a part of that. And then, when we cross over to the ancestors, that's Gede too. So I think Gede is a lot about the
Mm-hmm.
circle of life, afterlife, and the creation of life. Um, and Yeah, I think in terms of my faith, this piece sort of talks about um it talks about a lot. It talks about me as like an individual spirit, and then me in the context of like the spectrum of my ancestry.
Mm-hmm.
Um and I think the piece is about Um, in my dreams, though our words loom indecipherable by language, our songs and dances tell our stories, the joy of our reunion, the despair of our severance, the unthinkable pain and horror caused by our alien nation. And I
Mm-hmm.
think, that speaks to how, okay, these are my oldest ancestors, right? We are connected, and yet something has happened where there's been a there's been a severance, there's been an alien nation.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that part of the poem is connected to my own revelations on my more recent ancestry, that was that voodoo and the voodoo spirits, and connecting with voodoo spirits, and rethinking my own recent European ancestry and history through the lens
Mm-hmm.
of voodoo and what voodoo has contributed to the world. Um, that's what that has yielded, right? Understanding that Yeah, man, my European ancestors that looked like me at some point had these beautiful traditions that in some way were connected back to this original ancestry.
Right.
A lot of harm, a lot of violence, a lot of colonization within Europe happened to make people lose those things, forget about them, right? In a lot of cases, forget about them. So there's that piece, but then on the individual level, which of course isn't just the individual level, right? It's like it's like them. It's like they're still there, and they were rooting for me and for us somewhere. You know what I mean? And they you know, through these dreams, through these revelations. This didn't come from a sleeping dream. This was just sort of came, I guess, an awaking dream. They're they're here to call us back, you know, to call us back and to send us forward. So, and that's sort of how I guess a big way that I understand my initiation into voodoo, right? It's like that Sankofa. It's, even though it's not my, as far as I know, my blood ancestry, it's like it's a branch of that same root. And it's there to shape how we move forward together.
Wow. Yes. Aibobo.
Aibobo. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Manbo, if thinking of Gede too.
Right. Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow. Yes. This is really awesome. I personally resonate so much with what you've shared with your story and with the poem. And I know that like our audience is also going to really, you know, resonate, and it's going to inspire people to maybe reconsider some things, right, in terms of lineage and identity. So I think it's a really powerful piece, you know, to get people thinking and reflecting. Thank you so much for sharing it.
Yeah.
And yeah. So now
Yeah,
let's go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I've been talking about it through sort of the interior, right, of me and my lineage, but there's like, you know, there's the horror and there's the harm that was caused, that is still being caused, right, that needs to be healed. And I think that I don't want to gloss over that, you know what I mean? I don't want to gloss over that. Yeah. Yeah, that word horror is there for like a reason, you know, in that poem. So yeah, we have to be intentional about how we heal it.
Talk to what I think I know what you're referring to, but we may have gotten a little bit abstract, you know, for our audience.
Too
So
poetic.
let's make it more concrete what we're talking about here.
Yeah. Well, so I spoke about what happened to Europeans inside of Europe, right? A lot. There was an active destruction of kinship groups, of relationship with the earth, of relationship with ancestry and ancestral practices that happened at the hand of the Catholic Church in concert with rising powers in Europe that eventually became the state, this idea of the, you know, the nation. And then, you know, that all of that pain and that trauma was spread around the earth by some of the same people who had just recently been colonized, right? So I'm still learning more of the details about my ancestry, but I have significant ancestry in the British Isles. So like Wales, Scotland, Ireland.
Mm.
Those people were the foot soldiers of colonization in the United States on this land, Turtle Island, throughout the Americas. And Europeans in general did between chattel slavery, attempted genocide of numerous peoples, including the indigenous people in this land. And I mean, I say that too, knowing that like part of my ancestry, I have a mestiza great, I forget how many greats it is, grandmother. And she from Mexico. And she married a much older Anglo man. I think I might have talked about this the last time.
Like you did in your life history interview.
Yeah. And so, like it's in a small way, that's part of my history too, right? Maybe someone making a choice that they wouldn't have had to make. And of course, many people did not have choices, right? And this is the product of what started with people being forced to forget who they are. That's what happens when people forget who they are, is deep violence that lasts for generations.
Okay.
So I think remembering who you are, I guess, is the way to heal that, right? That's, I guess, one of the big messages of this poem.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. And so let's hear your second offering for us today, your second poem.
All right. So this second poem I wrote much more recently, in December. It sort of came out of me in one day. I wasn't trying to write a poem, just came to me. And I'll just start by saying that I think it, in the same way that first poem is like thinking about me in the grand spectrum of humanity, this one is much more reckoning with the more recent European ancestry and thinking about the literal journey into, across, and through Europe in a very concrete way, right? Like a geographic way. Like, what does it mean for people to be cold and lost in a blizzard, and how does that impact not only individuals but a community, and the way that a community moves and is broken.
Okay.
Yeah, and shout out to Sheikh Anta Diop, the late historian, anthropologist, because I think some of his work, which folks have done more work since then, but his work about thinking about matriarchy in Africa and patriarchy in Europe shaped this. So, all right, here we go.
Okay.
It's called Winter Wonderland. You wandered into the blizzard when I was weak, tearful, blood between my legs, lost in an endless migration of frost-bound ground, unyielding soil, and babies, conceived and born unceremoniously after freezing nights of misery, wondering if I, we, they had been forgotten, every ancestral taboo broken, cast aside, silenced by hunger pains and doubt. Heart shattered by missing grannies, mothers, aunties, sisters, cousins, best friends, likewise cast aside unceremoniously when their bodies became a burden and the frozen earth refused to open for them. You summoned us to the wilderness, so proud of your snow castle, built in distraction, without any of us in mind, an escape really, a monument to a million tragedies too frightening to face, let alone remember. You summoned us to this palace of forgetting, and many followed because really, what better did we have, except behind us? Slowly, too slowly, through numbed skin and winter winds whipping all around us, each of us secretly longing for the sun, the horror unfolded before us as we realized what you'd done, another layer of unforgivable on top of so many. The supplies stolen in the night from who knows where. We would find that out later. The neighbor's daughter, raped casually because boys will be boys. But where did these boys come from? It wasn't always this way. The inhospitability of it all, the absence of altars to anything but your foolishness. And yet, come, you said, this is where we will stay, chest puffed out, full of pride, conferred by men just as misguided as you. We stayed for a while, but the time of staying, mired in disbelief, drowning in despair, is over. I am stronger now, ever so slightly, but enough, nourished on dreams of long ago and inside the sun, guided by whispers from the spirits and bold cries from warmer latitudes, strong enough to draw you into my bosom, to be the quiet space where you release the fear you pushed aside for centuries, strong enough to listen, to comfort, to heal some piece of brokenness as you blubber into the broth I have prepared, which will lead you to a final rest, a peace unlike any you've known. Strong enough to return in the light of day, to clean up your mess, with or without you, to repair the irreparable, to dream back into existence the magic we lost along the way to this winter wonderland. Strong enough to change course, to bend back like an arc, no longer trapped in ice, no longer just ice, but just like that with a simple look back over our shoulder, justice. Strong enough to break through the freeze for this bridge they call my back, the way back from your castle of delusion to the old ways we know deep in our bones. Strong enough when the season is ripe and the moon is full to time your transition for a moment when finally the earth is ready to take you back, because this time we will not forget.
Mm. Hmm. Wow. Mm-hmm. That was a lot. What do you want people to know about you based on this piece?
That I'm not fucking around.
Okay. Yeah. Clearly, you are not.
I was reading this and I was like, why did I agree to read this? This is wild. This is why, and I agreed to explain it. Like, what am I doing?
Yes, I do. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's awesome. It's awesome. You know, I have my interpretation. I heard some of the allusions, you know, Bridge called my back. You know, yes. I hear it. And I think that your setup of it in the beginning was perfect because it gave, I wasn't sure about the context when I read it on my own.
Okay.
So having, you know, you're having provided that context now, it really helped with my, you know, my interpretation of it. So thank you for that. And it's, you're not messing around here, and you're serious. But it's, you know, the imagery though, I think, you know, some of the lines that say, you know, the absence unceremoniously, you know, just thinking about, again, the visceral nature of coming from a context, a culture, a society where it was communal, where it was warm, where there was abundance,
Yes.
where there was ceremony.
Mm.
And then taking this trek. I think that what you, and then taking this trek to not having that, right? And to experiencing loss and experiencing, death and these things that in your traditional society, you would have stopped. You would have had some kind of ceremony.
You would have stopped.
You would have stopped. And I think that, for me, it really makes me think about the well, I think a lot of people can make connections to it, right? That crossing. So that journey that you described, right, of these first Europeans, right, these first people to kind of cross over from, out of Africa, and to make this transition. I think that many people who have made these migrations and have made these crossings can connect to it, right? Like, what are you for when you're on this march? And then I'm thinking about the death marches to the death camp to Nazi Germany, right? Like, how do you change? How does your body react to it? What's the psychology of that? The dehumanization of it. When you are on this trek and you don't stop, everything is unceremoniously happening. You don't stop for things that you would typically stop for, right? You don't think about things that you would typically think about because of the hunger pains. So it's very it's really gripping. It's really gripping. So I hope I haven't talked too much about it, for those that, and we're going to do, for those who are listening, we encourage you. I'm putting it in the descriptions wherever this video is posted, on YouTube and on Spotify on the Embodied Memories podcast. But we highly encourage you to review the art on your own, right? Review it on your own, read it on your own before you watch this video, because when you watch the video or you listen to the audio, we're going to go in deep. And so I do want people to form their own opinions first before listening to us and viewing us. But that is, that there's something there, Manbo Katherine, that I think you're capturing a universal experience describing that journey, right? There's so many connections that I could make to it, describing that journey, that dehumanizing process, dehumanizing journey, that first journey, what was happening on the ships, what was happening during the trek, what was happening on that trek westward, or what was happening on that trail of tears, what was happening with people psychologically. And then, of course, you prompt us to think about, well, what do we have to do then to get back to remember, right? To get back to order. What are we willing to do in order to get back to order?
Yeah.
What are the women willing to do to get back to order?
Yes.
So I did some talking for you there. Now,
thank you.
You see, I said, let me get you off the hook a little bit.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, but anything else that you want to share about it? There's a lot in there. You gave us a lot. You've given us a lot with it. But is there anything else that you would like to share or to interpolate, make a connection with your faith tradition with it?
Yeah. Well, the first thing that's coming to my mind, I guess, in the vision that I'm looking at, that word justice is highlighted, because I was like, do I make it lowercase? Do I make it uppercase? It's capitalized right now. And it's making me think of that phrase of, and I was thinking of MLK, about how the arc of history is long, but it bends towards justice. So
and today is MLK Day.
And today is MLK Day.
To say, yeah.
May he rest in power, and, big up to an important ancestor for giving his life.
Yes.
for justice. And I think that idea of the arc being towards justice, but it being long, is also in this whole poem, right? There's this, you know, and in the poem, of course, it's a metaphor, allegory. So you're not sure exactly how long it is, right? It could be a single track. It could be, you know, centuries, as it is mentioned in there. I definitely think of it as like, you know, the long period that accounts for the transformation of a group of Africans becoming European. And I mean, if we want to get technical, there's some intermingling with Neanderthals there and stuff, but I think it's really about the geography. And probably a lot of individual choices that are made, and it seems horrific. And I think, again, I think voodoo is so much about accepting life as it is, and accepting humanity as it is, and like realizing, you know, under the right conditions, you know, magical things can happen, the best things can happen, right. Powerful things can happen. But also terrifying things can happen. And I think, you know, for me to make peace with myself, I had to kind of like understand, you know, like I said, what were they really going through that made them behave in such a way? These older European ancestors. And I, you know, this transformation from like this, you know, communal, the circle in which the women and children are, you know, held sacred. And again, I don't want anyone to come from a different perspective and be like, oh, she's just idealizing one society. And no, I'm not doing that. Like, humanity, right? It's never perfect in any in any place, in any format. But I know even in a neo-colonial context, when I go to Haiti, when I go to Cameroon, how different it feels from when I'm here in this nation, in the United States, which is the, you know, the product of this winter wonderland, got on a ship, came over and wreaked a lot of havoc. So it's kind of, you know, like how they go from a circle to a line, right? And, you know, maybe, and finding in a way, and I have white men that I love, like my father and my brother and other family. I've never partnered with a white man. And I think this poem was like me really kind of finding my deepest compassion for like the timeless white man who was like, found himself thrust in this position of like, or took up this position of like, we got to get these people from point A to point B. And the horror of that in a context where people are dying, all the sacred things are being cast aside so people can keep moving. So there's something, there's some piece of that, but then there's also a recognition of like, you know, I can understand you, I can feel for you. I can understand maybe also that it's my role as being in blood community with you of like trying to help you heal from that. And I can understand that it's weird time for something. We're in a time where we're ready to make another a journey, whether it's a literal journey or a spiritual metaphorical journey. We're ready for a new phase. We're
Mm-hmm.
ready for a new phase, and it's taken us a while to get strong enough to make that happen, but we're strong enough now.
Mm-hmm. And that,
That's about it.
yeah.
Go ahead.
And so two things I was thinking was that the idea of that potion, right? Because I just want to, address that and that rest and a transition that had me thinking about people. I've been meeting people recently talking about is it Hiawatha? Not Hiawatha, Hayayaka, I don't know, child. Some kind of drug. I'm sorry to put it that way.
Ayahuasca.
Some kind of drug people were talking about and that, that's supposed to, I don't know what it is. It's a psychedelic drug or something, but that's been used for many centuries, right? In indigenous societies in South America,
Yes.
in ritual spaces, right? In ritual spaces. So I thought about that, right? Like that kind of, I don't know, like I wonder, like, what is that potion, right? Because, one interpretation could be that it's going to take you, to the ancestral realm. But an alternate interpretation could be that maybe it's some kind of, it's really some kind of medicine, right? It's some kind of medicine that is going to support people in tapping into themselves, right? So it's to transport them, to help them with healing of some kind, right? It's some kind of powerful medicine that's going to support them in healing. It's almost like an invitation to a type of initiation. And of course, in our tradition, we can, in African diasporic traditions, we consider these different life events to be different initiations. Birth is an initiation.
Yep.
Right. Childbearing a child, childbirth is an initiation. Reaching adolescence is an initiation. Death is also an initiation, right? And there are different forms of death. So I just, that had me thinking about that, just how rich that symbol is, right? Of this potion that can be transformative, right? That can transfigure, that can transform, that can transport.
And I appreciate you saying that and adding in all that context, because I 1,000% agree with you. And when I wrote it, like I just wrote it. I just wrote it. You know what I'm saying?
You channeled it.
Yeah, I channeled it. And I do think that from a more rational brain, what I can say now in like the voodoo context, right, is that the ancestors can call you, the spirits can call you. Not everyone is called, but that line, with or without you, where is it? Strong enough to return in the light of day to clean up your mess, with or without you, to repair the irreparable, to dream back into existence the magic we lost along the way to this winter wonderland. I mean, that's the work right there. And the with or without you, like, people have a choice. People have individual agency. I think what is clear from this is, like you said, everyone's fitting to have some type of a to undergo some type of a transformation. some type of initiation, right? Whether it is into that ancestral realm, whether it is into a spiritual rebirth. Like, what we're not going to do is sit around and do what we've been doing.
Right, right. To be stagnant.
We're not going to be stagnant.
Right.
Yeah. We're not going to be stagnant.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to break the ice.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, thank you. Thank you again. This has been really, really awesome. Very rich. We of course we can continue this conversation, and I hope that the audience members who are watching and listening will continue the conversation amongst themselves. It's provocative, and it's very rich in imagery. And I hope it does spark some fruitful discussion and reflection. So thank you again. Is there another poem that you would like to share, a shorter one, before we close?
All right. Yes, there's, and I'm having such a hard time picking, and I think that part of the reason I'm having a hard time picking between these two is they are sort of like a Marasa poem. They're like twin poems. They fit together in terms of the content. They're both short. I'm going to read them both quickly, if that's okay.
That's fine. So you'll read them, and then we won't discuss them.
Yep.
Right? So you'll read them, and then we'll close.
Yeah, and you can pick should I start with Shout Out to Blackout or Artificial Light, which is the name of one, or should I start with Visions of the Future?
Why don't you go in that order that you just proposed?
Boom, okay. All right. So we know in Haiti, when the grid shuts down, when the electricity shuts off and everything's dark, that's blackout.
Okay.
So that's the name of this poem. Shout Out to Blackout or Artificial Light. In darkness, looking out at space from Earth, we are drawn to the shiny things, planets who share Earth's orbit of the sun, stars from whose dust we were made, the moon who rules our tides and cycles and lights our night sky. But looking back at Earth from space, one might get the wrong idea. The most sparkly places are the most profane. The most sacred lie in darkness. All right, and here's Visions of the Future. Nations drowning in cemeteries, drowning under death, coasts eroded by the greed of the departed, even in afterlife, taking more space than they deserve. Ice melted by hubris, nature's brilliance, sun and moon and stars blotted out by so many skyscrapers, neon lights, bombs, plastic reality, love segregated by chains and walls and bars and cages and myths, by lands separated by oceans, separated by papers, destiny thwarted by Babylon. Or Earth's blues and browns and greens, dotted by a million tiny fires, center points of a million villages, home to infinite grandmothers nestling grandbabies, whispering songs of love and peace and wisdom to their ears, the gift of ancestors preserved, home for everyone, no one lost, Sankofa fulfilled. Wake up, zombies, we decide.
All righty. Awesome way to close. Thank you. Thank you. Merci en pile. Mambo Katherine.
Merci de rien.
For sharing this beautiful, beautiful poetry with us to get us to think and hopefully to get us to act in a more just way, in a way that is helpful to us and helpful to our community, more helpful. So thank you. Thank you so much. And we look forward to to having you back and talking to you again.
Anytime. Thank you. And thank you for all you're doing, Manbo, Kahdeidra. This is sacred work. We're blessed to have you doing it. And many blessings
Thank you.
upon you and all the law for your continued work in this vein and all you do.
Oh, merci un peu. Aïe, bobo.
Aïe, bobo.